Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today, we finally get to sit down with someone on the show who I've been trying to link up with forever, or so it seems. He is the up-and-coming talent in my specific trade, my specific industry, Mr. Pat Finley of Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. So Pat knew while he was still in high school that he wasn't going to go to college. In fact, he was certain about it and actually used it to remain focused on the path that he did choose, which at the time was electrical. Eventually, that led him into commercial cooking equipment, then refrigeration. Even though much of his training was a figure-it-out style, he continued to succeed over and over again until he got to where he is today. So now, in addition to being a service technician, he's also one of the trainers for his company and for CFESA, the Commercial Food Equipment Service Association. He loves helping people learn the craft, which plays right into his definition of success, which is to simply make a difference. So tune in and listen to Pat's story and how he got to where he is today. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. You can now find this podcast on iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, and Pandora. As always, we rely on word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please do me a favor, take a minute to rate it, review it, and share it. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. That means they depend on you. So thank you again, and enjoy this episode of Blue is the New White with Mr. Pat Finley. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. I've got somebody on the show today that I've been trying to get on the show for quite some time. We just haven't had the opportunity to actually connect. We've done so a few times in person, finally, which is great. Finally got a chance to meet the man behind the screen here. But finally on the show, Mr. Pat Finley, welcome to the Blue is the New White podcast.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. I'm excited about this conversation. So anyway, listen, you're all over social media now. I'm sure a lot of those who listen to my show, watch my show, probably already know who you are. But for those who don't, why don't you go ahead and kind of give us, who you are, where you came from, how you got to where you are today. Let's catch us up to speed, man.
So I am a food service repair tech in Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, I didn't start life out as a food service repair tech. I took vocational school in high school when I was an electrician. So in high school, I'd go to school half a day, and then half a day I'd work at vocational school doing electrical stuff. Now, we wired a couple of houses, and we took care of building maintenance. So just imagine a 16, 17-year-old kid working on live 277-volt ballasts in classrooms, in parking lot lights, all kinds of stuff, blowing up strippers in the ceiling, and, there's kids in class, and it was quite the learning experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But so I did that for a couple of years, and I knew I wasn't going to go to college. I barely went to school. I'm not going to lie. I have ADHD, and school was not for me. I couldn't focus. I mean, I did my best, but I made it out. I did graduate, so that was a blessing. So when I came out, I became an electrician. So I did union for a little bit, and then the market kind of tanked. I hadn't started school yet, so when you're not in school and the market tanks, you don't work anymore. So it's just how it is. I mean, nothing against them. I don't care if people are in a union or not. That's your own choice. We all can make our own choices. So I went non-union for like 6 years, and I was doing everything from light commercial to residential high-end homes, and then I got stuck doing apartments. And I was literally traveling around the state of Indiana into Kentucky, Illinois a little bit, and we'd wire apartments. And it was an apartment a day. No matter whether you got it done or not, you had to stay and get it done. It was just a nightmare. And if you know about ADHD, repetitiveness just destroys you. I mean, You can't do it. So my dad, he growing up, he had an HVAC business, and then he worked for a company called Commercial Parts Service in Indianapolis. And eventually they got bought out. And that was when Ecolab was just running around buying everybody up.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to be a part of that big corporate world. He came from a family-owned company that treated employees really good. Employees had say so. It was just a pretty good place to work for. And he's like, well, I'm going to retire. I was like, oh, okay. He said, you want to work here? And I was like, sure, I'll try it. It's cool, something different. So he got me a job. I took over his territory, and I started working for GCS at the time. And I did 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, my uniforms came in finally after 2.5 weeks, and they said, just go do it. Like, we can't do it. Like, they just let him go. And that's how it started. I just 2.5 weeks, and I started cutting my teeth in McDonald's, Frymaster Fryers, Garland Grills, everything.
So what was your training?
McDonald's.
What was your training like? I mean,
I rode with a guy for like 2.5 weeks.
that's
That
it.
was about it.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Wow! And the rest was just, hey, I know what I know, and let's figure it out.
Yeah, it's just figure it out. Well, I had a good support system, so
Sure.
my dad, of course, I could call him, but just trying to figure out how stuff works is how I always was my entire life. My mom will tell you stories of me as a little kid tearing toys apart, trying to figure out how they work, trying to put them back together, and they rarely went back together and worked. But I gave it my best. But I mean, I just always wanted to tear stuff apart. It just never. I never thought of anything else about it. I mean, just a kid, I thought. But so
That's
2.5 weeks, and they kicked me out and never looked back, man.
That's awesome. So wait, before we go any further, because I got a couple questions here. So you said in high school you were doing this vocational thing, so half days, doing all the wiring, half days in school. You knew you weren't going to go to college. What was the response like when you told people, or I mean, it seems like to you it was kind of common knowledge. Hey, I'm not going to college. Did anybody push back on that? Was everybody pretty accepting of it? Like, what was the mindset?
So I graduated high school in 2000, and that's right, the mid to late 90s when they started pushing the whole college thing really heavy. I mean, they always wanted people to go to college, but that's when it was like you had to go to college. And I knew it wasn't going to work out for me. I mean, I couldn't do it. I barely made it through high school. And my mom, she went to college late in life, and she ended up not even working in the field she has a degree in, and it wasn't going to be for me. I mean, so I didn't get any pushback, and no one doubted me. I've had people in my family. My brother, he went to college. He's in IT, and people make comments. Oh, finally, someone from such and such went to college. And I'm like, I don't care about that, man. It's like, the money I make doing this, you wouldn't even question going to college.
Yeah. So you knew. So there was like no question. You would never bounce back and forth. You were just like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm cool with this. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I think there's a lot of value in making a decision like that and sticking to it. I've had a lot of people on the show, and I've talked a lot about college and the trades and stuff like that. And, the overwhelming consensus is most people were confused, whether they went to college or whether they didn't. They were confused whether they should or shouldn't. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that clarity that you have, I think I don't want to call it a superpower, but man, I mean, it sounds like it kind of really enabled you to focus hard on what you were doing and just move forward.
Yeah, I've always been a worker. Even as a kid, I'd be 12 years old and I'd be hanging out with the adults working. I'd hang out with my friends, but it wasn't like that was priority. We had horses. I was baling hay. I was cleaning stalls. I was doing stuff around the farm. I mean, I just always was working. That was just my mentality. So, even in high school, I didn't care about girls. I was focused on, going to vocational school. I'd go to work, that's just been me.
Why do I get that impression from you? Man,
never stops, man.
No, I get it. And I love that, man. I got all the respect in the world for that mindset. Truth be told, in high school, I did not have that mindset. I didn't develop that until a little bit later in life. In high school, I was the guy chasing the girls and, just trying to have fun. I thought I was going to be a street racer for the rest of my life. But, but then you reach a point, and, it was my dad's influence, if I'm being honest, that, he said to me once, he said, kid, nothing in life worth having comes easy. So if you want something, you got to fucking work for it.
Yeah. So I worked there for about 3 years, and I wanted to do refrigeration, but back at that time, that company was based on like numbers. Like, my numbers were great. I was fixing stuff. My calls or callbacks were minimal. I was great, and they didn't want to take the time to invest in me to learn something else. I was making them enough money, so just leave and go. And that, go back to the ADHD thing. I wanted to do something else. I was bored, so I left for an opportunity to do refrigeration. And I went to this company, like, okay, we're going to start you out. They gave me a big, huge pay jump from what I was making. And I was like, 24 years old, getting like a $6 an hour pay raise. I was freaking out, man. I was like, hey, I'm king of the world, 24, 25 years old. And so I get there, and I was like, okay, so how do I learn refrigeration? And they're like, shit's on your truck, figure it out. I was like, oh, damn. I already had my EPA before I even started at GCS 3 years before. And that was, the internet was around. Luckily, I had great people to call. My dad, some of my dad's friends, they all done refrigeration. Just buried my nose and trying to learn everything I could, man. And I bounced around for a couple of years to some smaller shops. I developed sleep apnea, so I was falling asleep driving. And the first place I went to, they ended up closing their doors because it was a satellite location. They didn't like Indy. They weren't doing anything, so they closed. I bounced around to a couple other shops, and I'd fall asleep. I'd get a couple of wrecks. They call me in like, "Hey, you can fix anything, but we can't insure you to drive, man." And they just let me go. And that was rough. I've got three. At that time, I had three small kids. I was married, had a house, had bills, and I'd find another place to go. I'd be good there for 6-7 months, and I'd rent a couple of vans. And hey, we can't insure you anymore. And then finally, my aunt helped out, and I got a sleep machine. And I quit smoking. I got a sleep machine, and things started to turn around. I reached out to my current employer, and I sent an application in. They called me back 15 minutes later. I went there, and I've been here coming on 12 years, and it's been a crazy ride for 12 years. Wow. I never thought I'd end up where I'm at now 12 years ago.
Really? Okay, so let's play off that for a minute. Where did you think you would be? I mean, if you're being honest, think about it for a second, but like where do you think 12 years ago you would have thought you'd be today?
12 years ago, I didn't have the mindset I have now. I liked working. Mm-hmm. I liked making money, but I didn't like to learn. I knew I had to learn to overcome and to be better as a person, as a technician, as a father. And I knew I had to do it, but I didn't know how. So I worked here for a few years, and eventually, I started taking on special projects. I started taking on the install. I started taking on the overnight jobs. I started picking up the extra on call. And at first, because it was a necessity, I needed the extra money, the extra income. And then it turned into, I was seeing that I was getting to do different things because I wasn't just, I'm only going to work 8 to 5, or, I'm not going to do anything extra. And then I was picking up other guys on call when they were sick or hurt. And eventually it just clicked. It was like, okay, I was like, I can really do something here. They had faith in me. They were letting me do some things, about 3 or 4 years in, I was starting to, they'd call me in and ask me about some bigger projects and stuff. I was like, okay, they have faith in me. So that's when I started to buckle down. I started to read as much as I could. I started to search for stuff on the internet. I just tried to get into any class I could. If there was a class coming, I wanted to be in it. I didn't care what I had to do to get in it. I just wanted to do it.
Wow. So what was it, do you think, that actually switched your mindset from knowing you had to learn to then wanting to learn? Was it just seeing the opportunity, or was it something more specific?
I think it was a couple of things. So seeing the opportunity that I could actually go and grow and do something with inside General Parts, or, I had a boss at the time that he started relatively right after me, and he worked his way up, and he had a lot of faith in me, had a lot of trust in me. I always tell people, I said, the best boss in the world is someone that actually listen to you before they tell you no. Yeah. I mean, you got to hear the guys out, especially if you're not a technical guy, you don't know. I think somebody comes up and explains to you, hey, we got to have this tool to do this job. Most people are just accountants. They're going to say no. It's a dollar thing, no. But if you can explain it and justify it, he understood, and he would take our side and go to bat for us. And like having him as a boss, like totally changed how I looked at a lot of things. And that showed that he had faith in me and faith in us as a techs and organization, and it paid off.
Wow, that's interesting. That's a testament to the power of good leadership and the potential of people, right? I think both one and the same. That's awesome. So I gotta ask, like, it sounds like through your journey into this trade, there was a lot of situations where you had a support system to help you learn, but really the style of learning was, hey, get out there and figure it out, but use your resources, right? Use your resources to help you. So what advice would you have to anybody? Because this is common. This isn't uncommon in our industry. And listen, I know that a lot of emphasis is being put on training, and we'll probably get into that with you as a trainer now, but what advice would you have to anybody in the industry that is being thrown out there, and wants to learn?
Don't freak out. I mean, nice. you're gonna see things you don't know what they are. There's stuff I see all the time. I don't know what it is. Like I've had training this week on some espresso machine. It's just crazy. I didn't know anything about it, but look at it, analyze it. It all has a power switch. It all has a cord. It all has an energy source, whether it be water, gas, steam, whatever. Start the basics and work your way through it. Yeah. Most everything has a schematic or a wiring diagram attached to it somewhere on it. If not, you can find it online. There's tons of resources out there. Don't freak out just because you've never worked on something. Don't don't say no either, though. I mean, a lot of guys, oh, I've never seen that. I'm not going to work on that.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
not an attitude to have. If you want to be a winner, you're going to have to adapt and overcome. That's just plain and simple. Don't freak out.
Dude, I love that, man. That is the most practical advice I think I've ever heard, because it's so true, right? Like, I've seen this
Yeah.
in my company. I've seen this across a lot of other companies. I talk to a lot of techs, young ones, and it is so true. Don't freak out. Like, the best thing that you can do is put yourself in front of something unfamiliar, right?
I tell the new guys, like I train a lot of new guys, and I'm like, look, I'm like, don't ever look intimidated. Don't ever say, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to work this. I mean, the customer is spending a lot of money to have you there. They're spending the same amount of money to have me there or someone else, and they don't know your background. They don't know what you have. But I said, if you get there and you don't have to turn it on, find the person that runs it. Like, hey, show me how you guys start this up. We'll make sure you're doing that process right. I mean, there's things you can do that make you look like you know what you're doing, even when you don't. I mean, you're going to figure it out. You're a technician. Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly right. And you can't put a value, man, on a well-rounded technician, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing. I see people all the time like, well, what's my best opportunity to advance in this industry? Well, the more you know, the more valuable you are, right? So I see a lot of times too, across the industry, like if somebody is good on hot side, they want to stick to hot side. If somebody's good on refrigeration, they like to stick to refrigeration. Same thing with HVAC. But the best techs in the world, man, are the ones that dip their beak in all the other trades, right? And I mean, those guys don't tell anyone, internet, but man, there's very little that I wouldn't do to keep one of those guys.
Oh yeah, dude, I get job offers all the time. It's hilarious. I'm like, no, I'm gonna retire from here unless something crazy happens. It's nuts. I mean, it's hard being great at everything, and I strive for greatness. Now, whether I'm great or not to be determined, but I try to. Whatever I do, I want to be 100% at it, and it's bad because sometimes I'll obsess over things. I will go down rabbit holes into stuff I don't need to go down rabbit holes about, but I just can't half-ass it, man. It's not me.
No, and that's not a winning mindset. So good on you for that. So you mentioned training. You mentioned that you train people now. So tell me a little bit about that. Where do you train people? How do you train people? What do you train them in?
Dude, I train a little bit everywhere. So I do most of the new hires that come in through my branch, and I do that. That's fun because you get to see a lot of the newer guys, and we've had some younger guys come across. We've got a 20-year-old trainee right now, and he's been with us right at 6 months, and he's really accelerating. He's really doing a really good job. He's doing a lot of online training. He's doing better than I ever thought he would, and that's kind of bad to say because it's my son. So. So he's doing well. He's growing. He's learning. He's hungry for knowledge. So that's great to see. And then we've got another guy that's pretty young, and we got some older guys that have transitioned over from residential HVAC and they're trying to come over. So there's learning. It's good to see these guys come in, and when something finally clicks and they get it, it's great. So I do that, and then it used to be a level 2 program. They used to do it through like Garland and Convotherm and FryMaster. So I do in-house training for FryMaster and Garland clamshell grills. So I actually have FryMaster fryers. I have Garland clamshell grills, and I'll travel across the country to all our branches. And I teach the guys, hands-on stuff. We go through the grills. We tear them completely down. I have a gas electric version. I mean, we strip them completely down, put them back together. I teach them programming. I teach them how to gap it. By the time I'm done, I feel comfortable. These guys can go out in the field, and they can work on these grills. I do the same thing with FryMaster. Do that program. And then also recently I started teaching refrigeration for Cefesa. So that's kind of how we've linked up, is through Cefesa. And that's been a complete game changer. It's kind of, Gary came to me one day and asked me if I'm interested in doing it. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I always try to diversify your portfolio. You don't want to stay in the same thing all the time. And I have a goal of eventually becoming maybe a full-time trainer. Now, I still want to do it. I just don't know when I want to do it. Sure. Not right now. But so it works. It's pretty cool. So twice a year I go down to beautiful South Carolina, and I teach basic refrigeration. So I'll go down on Friday, Saturday, I'll set the room up. Sunday, I'll do a practice run through. And then we have anywhere from like 12 to 15 guys come in. They start off the very basic. We start off with thermodynamics. Heat transfer. We go through tools. We go through everything. We get into defrost, wiring. We do it all in 5 days. I mean, it's a lot to do in 5 days, but I have confidence in the guys, and they all learn. that's the hardest thing though, has been trying to teach to the level. I mean, I'm guilty as anybody else. I'll gravitate to the guys that know more just because that's what I do. And, trying to step back and step out of that and realize that, if I do that, then there's a lot of guys that are going to get left out.
Sure.
So I got to try to teach to that level. And it's fun. I meet a lot of cool guys. Guys I'm friends with on social media because of it. Guys that follow me on the podcast because of it.
Yeah.
It's a blast. It's a cool organization. They're doing a lot of good things for the techs. I hope we can expand on some things, do even more. So,
yeah, that's cool. So let me ask you this. I mean, it sounds like you didn't really have these resources, when you were learning that you're now providing, which is pretty incredible. So you said you're always trying to diversify. Is that the only reason you said yes to being a trainer, or why is it that you want to do training full time eventually? What about it intrigues you?
I like being able to take someone that doesn't know something and show them how to do it and teach them the proper way to do it. So I didn't have someone to really do that for me. I mean, I had guys that would kind of help me out, but I mean, they weren't really training. They were just giving me tips and tricks. I'll check this, check that. So I didn't have anybody that gave me an opportunity. So, like I said, I have these guys with me and they'll struggle something. And, and I tell them, hey, don't do that. And then they do it anyways. I'm like, I don't want to be mean, but I'm like, there's a reason I told you to do that. I was like, because I've done that and I broke it and I don't want you to experience it. But sometimes they just got to experiment on their own. But it's just, I didn't have anybody do that for me. And I just want to kind of share my knowledge.
Yeah, no, I got you. The thing that sticks out for me is the ceramic Lincoln igniters. You know how many of those I've broken, Pat?
Yeah,
enough. Okay, let's just leave it at that.
The rationale igniters right now with the heat exchanger programs are bad about breaking because you got to bend them. It's just like you're bending steel and it's covered in ceramic. You're like, this isn't supposed to bend like this.
It truly is an art, though, for like what we do, and the training is I mean, it makes all the difference in the world. Because, I mean, it just, people don't understand. And I know, listen, you're still in the field, right? Like you still run service.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and so, the looks that we get sometimes from the people and listen, I'm not pointing any fingers, naming any names, whatever, but listen, I've walked into kitchens to fix an oven or a fryer and I've felt those stares like, hey, the grunt work guy is here. The mechanic is here, and that's, listen, I mean, I just call it as I see it. Right. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. That's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, is because, the whole world needs to know that the type of intelligence it takes to perform some of these repairs.
Yeah. It's not like it used to be. I've been doing this almost 17 years now. When I first started, nothing was like it was today. Like the things I've seen in 17 years is crazy. So I couldn't imagine guys have been doing it 30, 40 years.
I know.
Stuff they're seeing. I'm like, I'm blown away. Technology, how fast it's growing, leaps and bounds. It's just, you have to keep learning because everything's changing and evolving so fast right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And nothing's ever the same. And honestly, that's a double-edged sword, right? Because, for the guys that are in the industry, sometimes it can be hard to keep up with, but from another perspective, like, the new and evolving technology is one of the things that's attracting the newer generation to the industry. So it's like, I mean, it's double-edged sword, but one thing's for sure, it's the way of the world. Like, this is where these things are trending. So
it's only going to get worse. I mean, not worse, but better. It's just, I mean, it's gonna be harder to work on, but I mean, you've seen the robots and the stuff at the trade shows. It's coming. It's coming faster than most people are going to accept, and it's crazy. I mean, the workforce, issues isn't just hitting the trades; it's hitting everything.
Oh yeah.
If they can't keep people in there, they're going to find robots to do
it. That's true. That's true. So I got to ask too. Like, so you've got a podcast, you've got a YouTube channel, you've got this stuff that you're working on. Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. What led to that, man? I mean, how did that, you're doing so much now. And so, I
don't know how I do so much, but it's up there. So I'm not going to lie, man. I tell everybody this story. It was a thing of greed. So I had a personal Instagram account and I started following all these trades guys because I was trying to learn more. So I was following like plumbers and HVAC guys, refrigeration guys, and electricians. And most, like the HVAC and the plumber and electricians, have these huge followings. There are thousands of people who get free tools.
Yeah.
They get sponsorships. I'm like, this is nuts. I'm like, and I'm looking. I'm like, there's nobody who does what I do. I'm like, it's like we're an unseen trade. I was like, no, I can't have this. So I started. It used to be something else, but the Instagram for my work. And I just started posting that and just started growing. I'm not where I want to be, but I'll get there eventually. But it started as a thing of greed, and then I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm driving. I live an hour from my shop. I live 40 minutes from Indianapolis, so I'm driving to Indy every day. I'm driving to all the outlying areas. I mean, I make a lot of money sitting on a butt in that van. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. So I was listening to podcasts. I'm like, man, there's nobody doing what I do. No one talking about what I do. So back to the ADHD thing. Like one day I was talking, I made a post on Facebook or something. I was like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast about the commercial food repair industry, And 2 weeks later, I'm on to something else, follow the dopamine trail somewhere else. And so I'm walking by Gary's office. He's like, hey, I want to talk to you. And I was like, oh man, I messed up. When Gary says your name, it's never anything bad. I generally stay pretty good. He's like, no, you're not in trouble. He's like, come on in here. He's like, I want to talk about your podcast. I was like, oh, they're not going to let me do it. He's like, no, that's not the case. He's like, we're going to support you. And I was like, what? I was like, no, I have to do it. And it's turned into so much more, though. I mean, I've met a lot of cool people. I've interviewed a lot of great people. And I'm interviewing people that aren't even in our trade or even part of anything that's what we do. But I'm just trying to spread the word that you can make a lot of money getting your hands dirty no matter what it is.
Yeah.
So that's how it all started. And it's just kind of morphed into spreading the word and just trying to get the word out there. I mean, you do a great job interviewing tradespeople and, telling people, hey, you don't have to go to college. You can make a great living getting your hands dirty. You can start off as a technician. You can work your way all the way to being an owner. Yep. You never know. You could grow a huge company and someone could buy you out, or you could just grow a huge company, be your own boss, give it to your kids. You never know. Yeah. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. It's important that there's people like you out there, putting this industry in particular on a pedestal, and that's not an easy feat, man. Cause like you said, it's a very unknown trade. It really, and a little bit thankless if I'm being honest, but it's very unknown. It's like starting a podcast for like an elevator repair company, right? You don't think about it, but it needs to be there because these are the people behind the curtains. I mean, people don't understand how trades like ours really work to push civilization forward. I mean, you like to go out to eat, right? Everybody likes to go out to their favorite restaurant. Without us, man, that restaurant doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's so many people I talk to that have no idea this trade even exists. Like we never even thought about it. I'm like, man, there's tons of guys out here doing this that don't say anything about it because I'm not gonna lie, it's a dirty job. You can be covered in grease. You can come smelling terrible. You get stuck on a roof in the rain. You're outside when it's cold. You're in a walk-in freezer when it's -10. I mean, I'm telling you bad stuff, but there's a lot of good stuff too. I mean, I've walked into restaurants where they can't open up because their main piece of equipment's down. And you know what? You go in there and you're like, okay, I can do this. The customer's freaking out. They're staring at you. There's people outside trying to get in the building because it's closed. You go in there and you fix it. You're like, yeah, I did that. And, I mean, you got to have a little bit of ego, but I mean, it's just that feeling of fixing something and that place opens up.
It does.
They can serve their customers. They can feed, families. And it's cool.
It is. It really is. And that's what I love about it too, right? That, sometimes, I mean, listen, and this is in every industry, right? I said, it can be thankless, you're in, you're out, and all right, here, where do I sign? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's a lot of money, but then there's the other ones, right? Then there's the ones that they're calling you on a Friday night, because they're a local family pizza place, right? That their ovens aren't working, so they can't serve pies, which is their family business. You walk in, you get them up and running, and they thank you 1,000 times before you leave. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you take a step back and you're like, shit, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely a rewarding career.
Yeah.
Now, I tell everybody, when I started this job, I weighed 235 pounds. When I first started, I wouldn't eat anywhere. And then I realized, hey, I ate at all these places. So I went from being active to sitting in a van half the day driving around. So just make sure you stay active. You don't end up like me. So.
Well, you're working pretty good, man. I see you on social media there, getting the grind on with the lifting and stuff, man. So just keep on pace, dude.
Yeah, I got my ups and downs. I just got to focus on diet, man. That's the hard part.
Yeah, hey, if it was easy, everyone would do it. You know what I'm saying? But So we're gonna move to close here, but I want to know what's in the future for Pat Finley. What does it look like for you? You used 12 years. 12 years ago, you didn't know you were going to be where you are today. What does the next 12 years look like for you?
Man, that's a hard one. Hopefully, I'm still in the field, but hopefully, I'm doing a training role. So I'm trying to set up a different kind of role for me to help with some more training and some social media stuff with the company to try to grow that stuff. So that's my main goal,
Okay.
is to hopefully maybe roll into that. And then I'm 40 now. I'm hopefully by the time I'm 55, I'm probably hoping to be in a full-time training position.
Cool.
I do some stuff with some manufacturers and our parent company. So we'll see what happens when that rolls around. That's what I'm looking for. Hopefully the podcast is huge by then and I can just, retire, but I doubt that happens. So,
sponsored by every major manufacturer on the planet and just, yeah, no, I hear you, bud. No, that's cool. That's cool. I like that. All right. One last question and then I'll let you go. So I like to end all the episodes by talking about success, right? One of my things in the book and on the podcast is, that we all try to push people into this little box called success, which usually equals a college degree, a secure job, the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say, everybody defines success differently. And so I'm curious, Pat, how you define success overall and how the trades, what you're doing right now, are helping you to achieve it.
Wow. I've never even thought of it that way.
Good.
Success is just me getting up every day with a desire to go in and want to learn and want to do something and make a difference. Whether I'm making a difference at work, at home, my community, I'm just trying to be a better person. And if I still have that drive to do better things, I figured that's going to be a success for me. So,
that's great, man. That's great. What you can do every day in what you do, which is fantastic. Awesome, man. Well, hey, listen, for those who don't know how to find you, how can they?
So I'm active on literally every form of social media. I think that's how I won that award. But, so you get my main stuff. I have the most fun on Instagram and TikTok. TikTok's kind of up and down. I do some work. I do some personal. But that's Finley82, I think. Instagram is commercial_kitchen_chronicles. You can find the podcast just by searching Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. I'm on pretty much everything, I think. I don't know. I need to do a better job of seeing where I'm at. But I've got a Twitter, Facebook page. I got everything. Just search me and you can find me.
Awesome. And I'll put as many links as I can in the description of the episode as well, both on YouTube and on all the podcast platforms. But Pat, man, I can't thank you enough for spending your valuable time with me today. I know how much you got going on, so I just I appreciate it, man. And I know that my listeners are going to get a ton of value out of this episode. And if you are listening, make sure you tune in to all of Pat's stuff too. It is phenomenal.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
All right,
appreciate it.
Take care, bud.